Bill Landing back on Interesting Individuals. It is April of 2014. John Baines is joining me out at Purdue University, North Central in Westville, LaPorte County, and I am privileged to have Mr. Ronny Cox joining me for an interview today. He was speaking to the class here at Purdue North Central. It's a pleasure.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
And you will be performing in Michigan City, Indiana. And, of course, the show will be playing after that at the Lubeznik Center. And first trip to Michigan City?
It is. And man, I'm loving it here. And I'm delighted to be able to do this kind of show. I like doing little small shows like this with my band.
We will get to the music career in a little bit. There's so many different things we can talk about. I guess we talk about the younger people are going to know Mr. Cox from Beverly Hills Cop, RoboCop, Total Recall, and some of the films you mentioned in your little speech here that you might want to forget. But I'm going to start out with, do you remember the first paying job you got as an actor?
I do. I went to school in Portales, New Mexico, and so when I was in college, I got a job in Canyon City, Colorado. It was an old western town called Buckskin Joe, and we did gunfights in the street every hour on the hour, and then at night we did a melodrama, and I got $20 a week and room and board.
Outstanding. All right. Now, I want to talk a little bit like so many other actors. You started out in theater. I happen to know that you worked with Joseph Papp for several years, and you had a good relationship with him.
I did indeed. As a matter of fact, Joe was the first major producer that believed in me in New York, and he gave me sort of my first major role in New York, and because of him, when John Borman came to New York looking for good unknown actors, they went to Joseph Papp, and I was recommended by Joe Papp. So Joe has meant the world to me.
Do you remember the names of obviously some of the plays that you did with him?
Yeah, I did a play called The Happiness Cage, which we did 2 productions of it, and then eventually it was made into a movie. The movie I did was with Christopher Walken. But the movie got the title changed to The Mind Snatchers.
Oh boy! All right. Well, now we're going to lead into that the movie Deliverance, and I know that you and Burt Reynolds, Ned Beatty, John Voight were in the film. I know that looking back on it, it was a grueling film to make. The Whitewater Rapids and the mountains, and it was not easy.
Yeah, no, it was a harrowing film, and we did all of the canoeing ourselves, and in some ways it was almost not making a film. It was like being on an adventure, and we went on this whitewater canoeing every day, and it was a life-changing experience for me because I'd been a struggling actor, and all of a sudden I was playing one of the starring roles in a movie.
And this was filmed down in Georgia, correct?
Yeah, Clayton, Georgia. The Chattooga River is the river we shot it on, and the Chattooga is essentially the Georgia-South Carolina border.
And roughly how long did the film take to make?
We shot the film in 12 weeks. We actually came in. We were there 14 weeks because we had 2 weeks of canoe practice and rehearsal, and we actually came in 2 days under schedule.
Outstanding. One thing looking back on Deliverance is when you see the mood of the film, there is hardly any music played during a lot of the scenes. We hear the pulsating soundtrack and everything, and it's just nature and the water and everything else that really set the mood, didn't it?
Right. Well, there is no music in the film except dueling banjos, and occasionally they play dueling banjos in a different key, in a different feel, different time signature, and there is no score per se. And the only other piece of music in the film is a little folk song that I sing that first night when they're camping out. I did a song called Moonshiner's Lament when we were sitting around the campfire and I'm playing. I played a little song there. That's the only music in the film.
And James Dickey, who was the author, played a sheriff in that film. I guess he was not the most pleasant man to deal with the director.
Well, Jim Dickey was a man that was full of himself. Let's put it that way. And he also, having written the thing, he was one of these guys that had trouble letting go. So here he had written the novel, and he really thought that he was going to come down there and he was actually going to direct the film too. He was going to tell us all what to do, and he didn't have the vaguest idea about that. So at some point it became obvious that he was actually asked to leave the set for a while. He came back to do the sheriff, but he, for the 8 or 9 weeks of the filming, he was not there.
Okay. Long-lasting impression 40 years later about Deliverance, what would that be?
Well, first of all, that it's stood up as well as it has, because it was so sensational when it first came out because of the rape scene that some people, I think, lost or missed the artistic excellence of it. And I think people go back and look at it now and they say, wow, this is really a pretty amazing film.
Outstanding. We're going to talk a little bit about Apple's Way, which I remember back in the 70s, CBS, and it was Sunday evenings, and in your speech to the class, it was made by the Waltons creators, wasn't it?
It was. Earl Hamner wrote it, who essentially, if you remember the Waltons, John Boy was playing Earl Hamner as a young man. My character, George Apple, was Earl Hamner as a man. That was and we shot side by side at the stages there. So
was that just one season that show was on?
Well, it was actually on parts of 2 seasons, because what happened was it was a mid-season replacement, and then went through the first half of the next season, and then 2 or 3 extra shows. So it was like a season and a half.
Now you've done theater, you've done films, you've done TV. There's different types of pacing between the 3. How can you divide those 3 up, and what differences, if any, are there?
Well, the work actually comes down to being the same. I mean, the pacing, you shoot much faster in television, and in movies you have a little bit more leisure, but in terms of, especially for someone like me, who I'm not a terribly well-trained actor in the classical sense. So for me, it pretty much comes down to the same. The preparation is the same. I pride myself on being a character actor. I have no desire to play Ronnie. So I do a lot of homework. And it's that homework that sort of, and it's the same sort of preparation that you have to do for everything. And that's one of the reasons why now with the music, I love these shows, because I'm a storyteller too. And so telling the stories, in a way, I get to use all the arrows in my quiver because I get to use my acting chops, I get to use my music chops, I get to use all all of my tools.
Is it more challenging to play a real life character than a fictitious one?
Yes, sometimes it is. Just because you feel like you want to be able to, that you're not doing a disservice to them. I've played several real-life characters. I played Pierce Brooks in The Onion Field, who was the actual lead homicide detective that solved the Onion Field murders. I played John Ramsey in the John Benet Ramsey murder case, that miniseries. I played Jerry Rubin once in a thing for the BBC on the Chicago 7 trial. Oh, sure. And so
one that, if I may point out, that comes to mind, in the line of duty, the FBI murders, the huge shootout, the worst in FBI history, and you were one of the agents in that.
Yeah, Ben Grogan, I played, and that shootout actually became the model for them changing the protocols because there were so many things. And so, yeah, that was the first of those in the line of duties, and I was really pleased. My friend Dick Lowry directed that film, so fabulous.
I know we can go on and on, but I believe A Case of Rape, which was a successful TV movie in the 70s with Elizabeth Montgomery, based sort of on fact, was that?
Yeah, it was based on an actual fact, and we were talking a little earlier, it for 10 years was the highest rated made-for-television movie in the industry. And the thing I'm proudest of is we got landmark legislation passed dealing with rape laws because of that.
Absolutely. So like I said, we can go on and on with the films. Let's talk about some of you worked with many big names, and in the films and TV, just some of the people that really impressed you the most, that you enjoyed working with and maybe learned from.
Yeah. Well, of course, I love working with Ned Beatty. He's a dear friend, and I got a chance to do a movie with Gene Hackman, of course, Eddie Murphy, and most people don't realize this, but I did a film called Taps, and it was Sean Penn's first film, also Tom Cruise's first film. And, of course, George C. Scott was in it. Timothy Hutton was in it. So I've gotten to work with some really, really great actors. Arnold Schwarzenegger. Richard Widmark. I've just gotten to work with some really incredible actors.
And Charlton Heston, I believe, too, another one.
Chuck and I did a thing called Gray Lady Down. Yeah.
That was in that phase for 3 or 4 years there where it was the big disaster films, and it wasn't. I never saw that one, but it was sort of like that in that line.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you who else was in that. So Charlton Heston was in it, of course, but Ned Beatty was in it, David Carradine was in it, Christopher Reeve was in it. While we were actually doing the film, while we were shooting the film, this young kid playing the lieutenant got a screen test for a movie called Superman, and got cast in Superman while we were doing Gray Lady Down.
You never know, right? You just never know with the people. But now we're going to move on now to music, and that is what is really involved with your life now, and you're concentrating on the music now. So let's talk about why you're having so much fun doing that.
Well, here's the thing. I talked about it with the class. I mean, I love acting, but there's nothing that cuts through to the heart like music does, and especially the kind of music show that I do, where I tell stories and connect with the audience. And I like for my show to feel like it used to be when we were kids, sitting in the kitchen or the living room or on the front porch, sharing music with our family and our friends. So these days, I've been lucky. I've had a fabulous career, and I still get offered a lot of acting work, but I turn most of it down just because the thing that I enjoy the most is playing the music. I lost my wife 7 years ago, and my 2 sons are grown. They're doing really well. And the thing that gives me the absolute most pleasure is playing the music. And so that's what I do.
Do you do any